The only law the Galactic Council had only one universal law at every species, from the crystalline Zephyrians to the gas-dwelling Nebulites, followed without question. Never approach the voiceless. For 3,000 years, these massive creatures had been the galaxy's shared nightmare. Standing 12 feet tall with obsidian hides that seemed to absorb light itself, they moved through space on vessels of unknown origin, arriving at populated worlds without warning. Entire colonies would be reduced to ash within hours. Military. Fleets that engaged them simply vanished, leaving only debris fields and unanswered distress calls. Marcus Thorne had lost his homeworld to them when he was 17. Kepler 442b, a thriving human colony of 2 million souls, had been turned into a wasteland in a single night. The official reports called it a voiceless incident, as if reducing his entire life to clinical terminology could somehow make the horror more palatable. Now, 23 years later, Marcus stood before the Council's inner circle, his weathered hands steady despite the magnitude of what he was proposing. "You want to do what?" Councillor Vexhi's tentacles writhed in what Marcus had learned to recognize as extreme agitation among the Aquarian delegates. "Study them," Marcus repeated calmly. "Make contact. Learn why they do what they do." The chamber erupted in a cacophony of alien protests. Clicks, whistles, harmonic tones, and subsonic growls filled the air as representatives from 47 species voiced their unanimous horror at the suggestion. "The human has lost his mind," declared Nexus Prime Corth, his metallic voice cutting through the chaos. "The voiceless cannot be reasoned with. They are pure destruction incarnate. Every species that has tried to communicate with them has been wiped out," added Councillor Yulmara, her scaled features grim. "The hegemony of Quartic, the Celestial Dominion, the Iron Brotherhood, all gone." Marcus waited for the noise to die down before speaking again. "And yet, here I am, proposing exactly what everyone says is impossible." He gestured to the holographic display showing his service record. "I've survived 17 missions that were classified as certain death. I've walked through quarantine zones that liquefied other species. I've negotiated truces with hive minds that considered individual consciousness an abomination." "The voiceless are different," Vexhi insisted. "Maybe," Marcus acknowledged. "Or maybe they're exactly what we've made them into monsters. Because that's the only story we've ever bothered to tell about them." The silence that followed was deafening. Finally, Councillor Yulmara leaned forward. "What makes you think you can succeed where entire civilizations have failed?" Marcus smiled grimly. "Because I'm human, and we have a bad habit of refusing to accept that anything is truly impossible." The Watcher 3 weeks into his mission, Marcus had learned more about the voiceless than the combined intelligence agencies of 47 species had gathered in 3 millennia. The key, he'd discovered, was devastatingly simple. Don't run. His ship, the Persistence, drifted in the outer reaches of the Hadean Nebula, where long-range sensors had detected voiceless activity. Instead of engaging his engines when the massive bioships appeared, Marcus simply waited, not through his observation deck's reinforced windows. He watched them move. They didn't swarm or attack randomly, as the reports suggested. They moved with purpose, following patterns that spoke of intelligence and organization. Their ships, if they could be called ships, seemed to be grown rather than built. Massive organic constructs that pulsed with bioluminescent veins. "Still think this is madness, Captain?" his AI companion Genesis commented. The artificial intelligence had volunteered for the mission, claiming curiosity about impossible scenarios. "Probably," Marcus admitted, making notes on his observations. "But look at them, Jen. Really look." On the main screen, a pod of 6 voiceless vessels moved in perfect formation around what appeared to be a wounded member of their group. The injured ship limped along, its bioluminescent patterns flickering weakly. while the others maintained a protective formation around it. "They're not attacking anything," Marcus continued. "They're protecting their injured. That's not the behavior of mindless destroyers. Perhaps they're simply ensuring the wounded one doesn't fall into enemy hands," Genesis suggested. "Or maybe," Marcus said quietly, "they're just taking care of their own." Over the following days, Marcus continued his vigil. He watched them tend to their wounded. He observed their complex mating dances among the asteroids. He saw them carefully avoiding inhabited systems, taking longer routes that bypassed populated areas. It was on the fourth day that one of them approached his ship. The creature was smaller than the others, perhaps only 9 feet tall, and moved with the cautious gait of someone testing unfamiliar ground. It stopped just outside Marcus's airlock. Its 4 arms spread in what could have been a gesture of peaceful intent. Marcus found himself reaching for his helmet. "Captain, you cannot be seriously considering EVA protocols, Gen, full life support. The atmospheric readings show. I know what they show." Marcus sealed his helmet and moved toward the airlock. "But sometimes you have to stop reading the manual and start writing a new one." As the airlock cycled, Marcus stepped into the void, between fear and understanding, carrying nothing but his translator unit and a hope that 3,000 years of terror might finally come to an end. Meeting the moment Marcus stepped into the void, everything he thought he knew about the voiceless changed forever. The creature didn't attack. Instead, it tilted its massive head, a gesture so remarkably familiar that Marcus felt his breath catch. It was curious. The same way a dog might study a strange new animal, or a child might examine an unusual insect through his helmet sensors. Marcus could detect complex vocalizations, not the mindless roars described in military reports, but intricate patterns of sound that suggested sophisticated communication. His universal translator, designed to decode even the most alien languages, struggled with the complexity, but managed to identify emotional undertones, caution, curiosity, and something that might have been loneliness. "Genesis," Marcus whispered into his comb. "Are you recording this?" "Every nanosecond, Captain. The linguistic patterns are unlike anything in our databases." The voiceless Marcus decided he needed a better name for the creature. Extended one of its 4 arms toward him. Not aggressive, not threatening. An invitation? Against every protocol ever written. Marcus reached out and touched it. The creature's skin was warm, almost human-like in temperature, with a texture like smooth stone. The moment their hands met, the vocalizations changed, became softer, more melodic. The translator caught fragments. "Strange, warm, small friend, maybe?" Marcus laughed, the sound echoing in his helmet. "Yeah, friend maybe sounds about right." Over the next hour, Marcus and the creature engaged in what could only be described as a conversation. The being showed Marcus images projected from bioluminescent patches on its armed star charts. Marcus realized, not of destruction or conquest, but of migration routes. Safe passages between worlds where they wouldn't encounter other species. "They're refugees," Marcus breathed, understanding flooding through him. "Jen, they're not invaders. They're running from something." The creature seemed to understand his realization, its vocalizations becoming more excited. It showed him more images, their homeworld consumed by some cosmic disaster, their long journey across the galaxy, seeking empty worlds where they could rebuild, the tragic encounters with other species who attacked first and asked questions never. Every time they tried to settle somewhere, they were driven away, Marcus said, his voice thick with emotion. 3,000 years of wandering, and every species they met treated them as monsters. The creature touched Marcus's helmet gently, almost reverently. Through the translator came a single, clear word. "Name?" Marcus's throat tightened. No one had ever asked them their names. No one had ever cared enough to learn what they called themselves. "I'm Marcus," he said clearly. "Marcus Thorne." The creature repeated it, its pronunciation careful and precise. Then it touched its own chest and made a complex sound that the translator rendered as Corathan Vel Mora Sun Singer. "That's beautiful," Marcus said. "Can I call you Corathan?" The creature's bioluminescent patterns flared brighter, unmistakably pleased. Then it gestured toward its ship, toward its people. Marcus understood. They had been voiceless not because they couldn't speak, but because no one had ever listened. Today, that changed. The ambassador word of Marcus's success spread through the galaxy like wildfire, and the reaction was exactly what he'd expected. Panic. Within hours of his first transmission, emergency sessions were called on every populated world. Military fleets mobilized. Some species demanded Marcus be arrested for violating the most fundamental law of galactic civilization. Others called for immediate preemptive strikes against the voiceless while they were distracted by Marcus's presence, standing in the council chambers once again, this time via holographic projection from the Persistence. Marcus faced a wall of alien fury that would have intimidated anyone else. But he'd spent the last 2 weeks learning the true names of beings his people had feared for millennia, and fear seemed like a luxury he could no longer afford. "The Corathic," Marcus said, using their true name for the first time in the council. "Chambers are not the monsters we've made them out to be. They're refugees, survivors, and they've been trying to avoid contact with other species, precisely because every encounter has ended in bloodshed." "Lies," roared General Voss, the Centaurian military representative. "My grandfather died when those beasts destroyed the mining colony at Proxima 7. "Because your grandfather's people fired first," Marcus replied quietly. "I've seen their historical records, General. The Corathic arrived at Proxima 7 seeking water and basic resources. Your grandfather's colony ships opened fire the moment they detected them. You're defending them?" Counselor Vexhi's tentacles writhed in agitation. "They've killed billions." "In self-defense," Marcus said firmly. "Every single voiceless attack in the historical record shows the same pattern. The Corathic arrive. They're immediately fired upon, and they defend themselves. The only difference is that they're better at it than we are." Through the viewport behind him, Marcus could see Corathan and 3 of his podmates working alongside Genesis to translate their historical archives. They moved with careful precision, treating the human AI with the same respect they'd shown Marcus, something that had surprised everyone except Marcus himself. "Let's say we believe your fantastic claims," Nexus Prime Korth interjected, his metallic voice dripping skepticism. "What exactly are you proposing?" "I'm proposing we do something revolutionary," Marcus said. "I'm proposing we try talking to them instead of shooting at them." "Impossible," declared Counselor Yulmara. "The public would never accept it. 3,000 years of fear cannot be overturned by one human's delusions." "Then we'll have to show them," Marcus replied. "Corathan and his people are willing to meet with representatives from the council. Neutral space, minimal security, full transparency." The chamber erupted in protests, but Marcus continued over the noise. "They want to establish trade routes that avoid populated systems. They want to share their biotechnology in exchange for raw materials. They want to teach us about the cosmic disaster that destroyed their homeworld, a disaster that's still expanding and will reach council space in approximately 800 years. That last statement brought sudden silence to the chamber. "You're saying they're trying to warn us?" Vexhi asked slowly. "I'm saying they're trying to save us," Marcus replied. "The same way they hoped someone would save them." The new name 6 months later, Marcus stood on the observation deck of Harmony Station, watching the impossible become routine. Below him, Corathic bioships moved in formation with council vessels, their joint patrols now a common sight in neutral space. The first interspecies trade agreements had been signed 3 weeks ago, and the technological exchange was already yielding miraculous results. Korathic biomedicine was revolutionizing healing across dozens of species, while Council metallurgy had allowed the Korathic to finally build the permanent homes they've been seeking for millennia. "Still can't believe it worked," came a familiar voice behind him. Marcus turned to see Commander Zara Okafor, the Council's newly appointed Korathic liaison, approaching with a datapad in hand. "How are the settlement negotiations going?" Marcus asked. "Better than anyone dared hope," Zara replied. "The Korathic have identified 47 uninhabited systems that meet their needs. With Council engineering support, they estimate they can establish sustainable colonies within 5 years." Through the station's massive windows, they could see Korathan and his pod working with a mixed crew of humans, Aquarians, and Centaurians on a new type of vessel, part grown, part built, representing the first true collaboration between Korathic biotechnology and Council engineering. "And the Devourer situation?" Marcus asked, referring to the cosmic entity that had destroyed the Korathic homeworld and was slowly consuming its way toward Council space. "The Korathic have shared everything they know about it," Zara said. "Combined with our resources, the scientific team believes we can develop countermeasures. We have 800 years to prepare, and now we have allies who've actually fought this thing before." Marcus nodded, watching a group of young Korathic and human children playing together in the station's observation garden. They'd invented some sort of game that involved bioluminescent patterns and laughter, proof that understanding could bloom even where fear had ruled for generations. "You know what the best part is?" Marcus said. "What's that?" "They're not the voiceless anymore." Marcus smiled as Korathan noticed him through the window and flashed a complex greeting pattern with his bioluminescent patches. "They're the Korathic. They're our neighbors, our allies, our friends." Zara looked puzzled. "What's the significance of that?" Marcus thought of his destroyed homeworld, of 3,000 years of terror, of one simple act of reaching out instead of striking first. "Names matter," he said finally. "When something doesn't have a name, it's just a thing, a threat, a monster. But when you give it a name, when you learn its real name, it becomes someone. And once something is someone instead of something, everything changes." Below them, the galaxy's former monsters tended their gardens, raised their children, and worked alongside the very species that had once fired upon them without question. The voiceless had become the Korathic, and in doing so, had become family. It had taken one human, refusing to accept that anything was truly impossible, to remind the galaxy of a simple truth. Sometimes the most dangerous thing you can do is reach out your hand. Sometimes it's also the most important.